Okay, here we have a factory crank. Yes, it needs to be turned. If you look down in there, there's what they call the fillet, the rolled fillet. So there is no 90-degree edge there, or like an aftermarket crank has a radius. Here's an aftermarket crank. Notice we don't have a radius here. Excuse me, we don't have a rolled fillet here. It actually is a radius. It's not quite 90 degrees. It's at an angle. So that can create a problem with your rod bearing. In this case, that would need to be chamfered. If you look at this bearing here, this bearing's got a nice edge on it where it's been chamfered. This bearing, these bearings here do not. If you look at them on the edges, you can see where they're shiny. Okay, and then where my arrows are, that's where it's been rubbing. So if I take this chamfered bearing and I put it on this crank, it will ride up to the edge of the crankshaft without a problem. Now I don't have my light on, so it's not as good as it could be. And if I take this bearing here, that is a non-chamfer bearing, it does not ride up. It stops short. So when it stops short, the oil can't get out. You lose your oil clearance, and that's bad. Another way to avoid chamfering bearings would be to run a stock width bearing. Obviously, these are all, this is a H bearing, and these are P bearings, but you would need to run a narrow bearing, but I would prefer to run a wider bearing and chamfer it for the bearing area. So I'm going to chamfer it in this handy dandy little tool I've got on my lathe. Let me set that up. Okay, so here we are. It's in the chamfering tool. You can get a really good shot of the nice square edge there. It fits down in the lathe like so. I'm going to tighten that up. And then you can see my tool, which my tool is at an angle, so we'll put an angle on it. So it won't just cut it straight. Like if I use this one here, it would just cut it and make it a narrow bearing, which is not what I want to do. So let me cut it. And that's the start of a chamfer. I'm going to chamfer it some more. But you get the gist of it. Now, after you chamfer it, you must come in here with an X-Acto blade and deburr it. Alright, so there's some information about bearing chamfering that I'm finding out firsthand today.